Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. We've got a sleeper episode. You can follow us on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. So Tags, as I understand it, you went to Soldier Field yesterday. I'm assuming they had open tryouts for a new starting quarterback?
Obviously. I mean, yeah, a starting quarterback. I'm going to go try out for that. I was at Soldier Field.
As if they need one, by the way. I mean, let me ask you this, Tags. Mitch Trubisky had a 66.6% completion rating last year, 7.4 yards per attempt. How many times do you think Brady's done both of those things in his career?
You're setting me up to make it seem like it's a low number. I'm not going to compare him to Brady, obviously, but
it's just two, man.
Two?
It's just two times. The 16-0 season, and then the year he went 11-1 after Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo started the year. Brady's only done that twice. Trubisky's a kid, man. He's got a good career ahead of him.
Yeah, he's really young. But I was at Soldier Field, actually, and we did this. I was able to play golf at Soldier Field. It was really neat. It was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. My wife, me and a bunch of friends, they did it for Father's Day, so it was like a late Father's Day thing. So I actually played bags, which if people have told me that I'm wrong, that it's called cornhole, but I call it bags. I played bags in Soldier Field and golf, so that was really cool.
I like that, man. That sounds awesome to do that at your favorite stadium as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was the first time back there since, being there for the double doink kick. And so there were some bad memories walking up the steps to Soldier Field, but at the same time, it was good to be back.
I forgot that you were there for that game. That's so sad for you, man. Okay, so here's the plan. We've got a sleeper episode today. We're going deep sleeper, so only players with ADP outside the top 120. That's after 10 rounds of drafting, so players you will be able to get towards the end of your drafts. First, though, Tex and I are going to talk about this Melvin Gordon news. We also want to talk a little bit about Carlos Hyde, Damian Williams, and Tags, I believe you had something else to talk about, some potential rule change in the NFL that's actually really interesting. Before we jump into that, though, I want to talk about our cheat sheet creator, Tags. It is the easiest way on the internet. You can look for days. You won't find something easier to create a cheat sheet for your draft, whether it's an auction league or whatever. You can instantly import any rankings from the web, from your personal spreadsheet, and you can combine multiple expert cheat sheets into one consensus cheat sheet. It's basically cheating, hence why it's called a cheat sheet. And premium members, you'll be able to customize your rankings through a simple drag and drop interface, create player tiers with a click of a button, and import and edit player notes. You can also export rankings into our simulator, as Tags has talked about, or into our draft assistant. All the customization work will be done for you, so you don't have to spend hours doing it. Tags, that's one of my favorite features on the site, man.
Yeah, it's really neat. You know, you'll see a lot of things with like auction values, like people printing off cheat sheets. But the thing is like a lot of times scoring can be different. Your league size can be different, everything. So what happens with Draft Wizard is you're able to plug in all your league settings, the rankings that you want, and say, give me an auction cheat sheet based on this, and it will do that for you. And so I have a lot of people, on Twitter ask me about, how should I value people in auction? Should I be willing to go above or beyond? Basically, it spits it out to where it should be pretty much in line with what the values should be for those players. Obviously, you can move them here and there, give yourself some wiggle room, but at the same time, it's really neat. It kind of takes the legwork out of it.
So Tags, I'm talking about these premium tools, and every once in a while I get something from someone saying, these premium tools sound awesome, but like I just can't talk my wife into spending the money every single month on fantasy football. Well, here's an offer for you, okay, guys? You can get a free 6-month subscription. It's a $65 value for just $10. All you have to do is be a new user to Yahoo DFS, and you deposit $10 into Yahoo DFS through our offer at FantasyPros.com/offer. And then you can win money with that $10 too. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Tell your wife she can set the lineup with the $10, and then you get Fantasy Pro subscription for free for 6 months.
That sounds pretty fun. I mean, I've literally done this with friends. My friends will they'll create like a 25-cent lineup for their wife or girlfriend to create in DFS, and it makes the games more enjoyable for them.
Yeah, and it gives you access to all our premium features, tools, content, like the stuff we were talking about in the cheat sheet just a minute ago. But again, you have to be a new user to Yahoo DFS at FantasyPros.com/offer is where you can enter. Now, Tags, we said we were going to talk about Melvin Gordon. He's apparently demanding a trade if he can't get a new contract. I don't think anyone wants a Le'Veon Bell type of situation, neither his camp nor the Chargers. So are they going to come to an agreement, or are they going to trade him? Is anyone going to want him? He's a running back.
Yeah, I would have to think they're going to come to some sort of agreement. I don't think he has the leverage that Le'Veon Bell did, like even to say that he's going to sit out, because he's in the final year of his rookie deal. It's very cheap. He wants to get to free agency if he can. So basically, they can franchise tag him next year if they wanted to, and they could do that for 2 years. And then you're essentially wasting some of the best years of his career. So he's not as young as Le'Veon Bell was when he was going through this. So he's getting older. And I mean, nobody's going to trade for a running back at this day and age. Nobody trades for running backs. And if he was traded to a team, the expectation would be that he'd get a new contract. No one wants to pay running backs right now. A lot of those salary caps are filled throughout free agency. I happen to think this is a lot of noise. I think that he's making it public so that he lets the Chargers know he's serious, that he wants a new contract. And I mean, he's played up.
Even if he just gets an extra $500,000, like we're talking about $500,000. Going out and saying something like this might do the trick. A lot of people are saying, well, the Bucs are a natural fit. They've got Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber. They need a running back. Bruce Arians already said he doesn't want a star running back. He doesn't need a star running back. He's not going to go out and trade for Melvin Gordon and sign him for $14 million.
Yeah, nobody's trading for Melvin Gordon. So I think the best case scenario for all parties involved, Melvin Gordon has played above his contract. Rookies, they kind of get screwed because running backs, they're used and abused and then thrown out of the league. So he has to capitalize. This is one situation where I don't mind what Melvin Gordon's doing because he has outplayed that contract. And running backs, they just don't stick around as long as they used to. So he's got to capitalize while he's in the prime of his career.
I agree with that. I disagree though. I think someone would trade for him, potentially Houston, because I think their window is to win now with the defense as it is. Deshaun Watson, who knows how long he's going to last behind the offensive line, 62 sacks last year, or the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are a major wild card. What do you think about this one though? The Chiefs. Imagine the Chiefs upgrading from Williams to Melvin Gordon tags.
No, I can't.
Andy Reid's aggressive in trades, but what he does with running backs, it doesn't matter who his running back is. I don't think it could happen.
I think it's unnecessary for sure. Like I said, I don't see Melvin Gordon going anywhere though.
So speaking of Damien Williams tags, you and I have been talking this preseason about, maybe Carlos Hyde might take the job from him. We thought he was more talented. You brought up a stat that kind of finalized it for me that we were wrong about this. I've been heading that direction a little bit lately, and now I'm pretty sure. So can you share this stat so we can just put a cap on it, say we were wrong, I'm drafting Damien Williams in the late second round?
Yeah, I've been working on this article. Basically, it's an article that, running backs, how many times have you heard people tell you that yards per carry doesn't matter because this guy gets carries inside the 5-yard line? That's going to drag down his potential ceiling for yards per carry. He's short yardage. So I'm doing an article right now, working on it. It's going to be out later this month, where I basically go through the running backs and wide receivers, and I look at where they were targeted on the field, where they got their carries on the field, and every single carry from depending on where it's at on the field, they have an estimated value. Okay, so red zone carries obviously have more inside the 5-yard line. They have more. Carlos Hyde over the last 2 years has scored 83.6 fantasy points less than the average running back in the NFL would have given his exact carries. Okay, 83.6. He finished dead last in 2017, and he was second to last in 2018. So Carlos Hyde has been pretty crappy. Even though he was a fantasy viable option, basically where his carries were taking place, he should have netted a lot more fantasy points. No other running back in the last 2 years has totaled below 59.5 points. So his 83.6 that he's left on the table, yeah, I told Bobby we should probably back off that whole Carlos Hyde thing because he obviously is just not as good as we thought with the carries he's getting. He can break tackles, but Damien Williams, it's his job to run with. I have my durability concerns about him. Damien Williams, he's RB15 in my rankings right now just because of those durability concerns, but if he's healthy, he's the starter.
I've got him RB15 as well. I've moved him up ahead of Marlon Mack, Josh Jacobs, Devonta Freeman. He's just behind Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette, just to give you an idea of the tier. And I moved Austin Eckler up too, just in case. I'm not certain that he would be the workhorse. I think we saw in London that didn't really work. And then they used Justin Jackson. He went off for 85 yards and a touchdown in his start. So I got Eckler right now as my running back 35. I've got Justin Jackson. I moved him up to running back 49. We'll see what happens with Melvin Gordon. But Tags, let me ask you this. Let's say Melvin Gordon gets traded, or he doesn't get traded and he gets hurt. Austin Eckler, are you drafting him in the top 15 running backs?
No, not at all. Not even close, actually. He'd probably be around that RB 25 to 30 range for me.
So you think that he just wouldn't fill the role, or that he's just so much worse than Melvin Gordon?
No, I just don't think he'd fill the role. He wouldn't be the workhorse. I don't think that's the role he's designed for. I don't think that's what the Chargers want him to do. I think Justin Jackson would be in a timeshare with him. Eckler would probably get 60% of the work, but that, to me, that's in the territory like a Mark Ingram, Lamar Miller. I'd probably take Lamar Miller over him, to be honest with you. So I just feel like it'd be somewhat of a timeshare, so I'm not excited about it.
Interesting. Okay. All right, man. Well, let's move on to our sleepers, and we've got 10 of them prepared each. And, usually we just count them backwards, 10, 9, 8, all the way to 1. But then you always steal my number 1 pick with, like, your number 3, and you completely steal my thunder, or vice versa. Let's be fair. So we're going to do it differently today. We're going to start with our number 1. Now, Tags, don't you take my number 1 right now. This is your chance to...
Well, I found out after doing my list that you actually went a little bit deeper outside of yours. So our number 1s would definitely not match. I know that. So if you don't want me to steal it, we could start on the other end. I mean,
I'm not worried about it. My number 1 has an ADP outside the top 300. So
all right, so let's start with 10. I want to do a countdown. I want to work our way down to 1. All right, so my number 10 player is James Washington. James Washington, his current ADP is 123 overall. All the players on my list are outside the top 100. There's a lot of them outside the top 150, but he's at 123 overall. James Washington, he has to contend with Dante Moncrief for that starting spot opposite Juju Smith-Schuster, and I believe that he should win that spot. The career arc we've talked about in this show, in the fact that it's similar to Devante Adams, where Devante Adams was extremely bad his rookie season. Efficiency-wise, it was bad. James Washington, what he was doing in practice wasn't translating to the field, but Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger continually pumped this guy up, saying he's going to be a star. It's just a matter of time, and he just has to transfer what he's doing on the practice field to the game. And I think James Washington is a fantasy sleeper this year that, you don't have to draft him as a top 36 guy, but he could finish as a top 24 receiver at year's end.
Tags, if he does start, how many of Antonio Brown's 168 vacated targets is he going to get?
I think we could see him in the 90 target territory, because Vance McDonald's going to get some of those targets. Jesse James is also gone. Some of the running backs are going to get those targets.
And Ben Roethlisberger's not going to throw 675 passes again.
Correct. And on top of that, Juju Smith-Schuster can't see a massive bump, because I want to say that he may have led the league in targets. He was in the top 3. We know that. So he was already seeing a ton of targets.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and Juju had 166 targets, more than DeAndre Hopkins. While Zach Ertz was in the top 6. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's crazy. It was the most targets to a tight end ever.
Holy cow, dude. All right, so I've got James Washington, wide receiver 40, right behind Sterling Shepard, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel. Do you have him that high?
I don't have him that high yet, just because I don't know. There's a chance that Dante Moncrief does start, and that's like the concern for me. That's why I'm unwilling. I mean, we're going to find out once training camp starts and everything like that. We see preseason games. We're going to find out if he's running with the starters. They may mix and match him and just see who. But I think it's harder for Moncrief, given the fact that it's his first year in the offense with Roethlisberger, whereas James Washington, he's had a full year to work with Roethlisberger. They like him. They want him to succeed. So I happen to think that James Washington will move up in my rankings, probably to right around that wide receiver 40 mark, if we see, him like running with the starters.
And didn't they say when they drafted him, they were every bit as confident in his development as Juju Smith-Schuster? Like, the Steelers know what they're doing with wide receivers.
Jake Seeley, when he was on our show, he said that he was able to talk to Mike Tomlin at some event. I can't remember what it was, but he had mentioned that Mike Tomlin looked at him straight in the face and said, we like James Washington just as much as we liked Juju Smith-Schuster when they came out. So, like,
holy cow.
So they're still fans of him. That's why I happen to think they want him to win the job. And if he doesn't, it's just because he's not ready.
Yeah, and that's why I've got James Washington so much higher, is because, I mean, let's be honest, he has more upside than anybody else in this range. Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, Larry Fitzgerald, probably not as much upside as Geronimo Allison. He's got more upside than Will Fuller. I think he's got more upside than Devante Parker. All these guys, Christian Kirk. And so I'm willing to take a little bit of a risk in the 10th round is where he's going right now?
Yeah, he's going at 123, so it's the 11th round in 12-teamers. So that's like an area you could reach a round or two if you want to ensure to get him.
All right, here's my number 10. There's only a few backup running backs I like besides the obvious ones, Rashad Penny, Royce Freeman, Darrell Henderson. One is Malcolm Brown. I think one is Jalen Samuels, or Benny Snell could fit in nicely. We don't know who it would be, though. Tony Pollard, if he would get the job in Dallas, could be great. Obviously, Tags and I both love Damien Harris as well, but my other guy is Raquel Armstead. He's my number 10 sleeper. He runs like Chris Carson, and he's the clear backup for the glass running back Leonard Fournette in a run-heavy offense with a plus run-blocking offensive line. If Fournette gets hurt for the year in the preseason, I'd draft Armstead probably in the 4th round. He'd be a 100% fab guy if it happened in the middle of the season.
Oh, that's a tough one for me. I do believe that he should be the handcuff, but I don't know if we know that for certain because they did sign Alfred Blue in free agency. And if we go back to the Texans, Alfred Blue is backing up Lamar Miller, not Deontay Foreman. So it's possible that, people just like coaches like Alfred Blue more for whatever reason. But Raquel Armstead, rookie running back, obviously I have no age concerns about running backs. Right when they come in the league, they can produce. So I just don't like the offense very much. Like, I don't feel like it's an offense that's going to produce very many points. So even if if something did happen to Fournette and he was out for the year, Armstead would probably be like a borderline RB2 for me, like at that low end RB2, high end RB3 conversation most weeks.
Yeah, I think he has a little bit more upside than that just because I don't know what else they're going to do. Like, Nick Foles isn't throwing 600 passes. So, we'll see. Hopefully Fournette stays healthy the entire season. Let me ask you this, Tex, before we move on to a sleeper number 9. What do you qualify as a sleeper? Like, it's got to be someone who hasn't done it before. Does it have to be someone that nobody's talking about, or can Keelan Cole last year, can he still be a sleeper? Marvin Jones the year before, Antonio Brown way back when everyone was saying these guys were sleepers.
Yeah, it's really tough to define the term sleeper anymore because, like, now that the internet's a thing, like back before, like when you had to pick up magazines, there were true things such as sleepers where these were literally guys like last year, Geronimo, if the internet wasn't around, people would not have heard of Geronimo Allison. So that would have been the definition of sleeper. But because of, podcasts and our website and things like that and the internet altogether, sleeper really doesn't exist anymore because there's a lot of people out there that are going to throw names at a wall and hope they stick. Because you know what, if you say, like, let's pretend that you say, D.D. Westbrook is going to go off this year and you throw that against the wall. And if it sticks, people are going to remember that. I've never been that type. I've always been the type where I'm like a logical thinker and it's like, anybody can break out, but it's like finding the most, the player with the best chance to actually do that. So to me,
the guy who gives you the best odds of helping you win your fantasy league. That's what it's about. It's not about being right.
Yeah. And so to me, that's like outside the top 100 players picked, because now you're at a point in the draft where you start reaching for your players. And if you believe in the sleepers that you're talking about, that means you have to reach a full round, if not 2 rounds, to grab them. So, I mean, we're talking around the 10th round is basically where things come into play. Some people will say that's not a sleeper, but I would argue that sleepers don't exist anymore.
So, I think that's a good way to put it. So, like, Tyler Boyd was a breakout guy last year. If someone would have said he was a sleeper last year, you would have called them crazy, but yet these guys happen every single year. So we're trying to target who could be that guy based on opportunity, based on talent, based on scheme. And I think it has to be someone with some upside. Like, we're not talking about guys who could be a bye week or injury fill-in. We want someone with upside that you could start every single week if the chips fall the right way. All right, so who do you have number 9 then?
Go figure. It is your boy. It's David Moore. I know he's going to be on your...
I actually didn't include him in my list just because I've been talking about him so much. Otherwise, he'd be number 1.
Yeah, he's at 256 overall right now. He's not even being drafted in the majority of leagues. But David Moore...
I'll be clear. I actually am drafting him in 12-team leagues right now.
Yeah, I mean... He's like a guy that you should take a chance on at the end of your draft. Like you're in the 15th round and it's like you snag him there. You are spending 0 equity to get him, and you're going to find out really quick if he's a starter. As of right now, it sounds like he is. It sounds like he's going to start opposite Tyler Lockett in 2 wide receiver sets, and he's obviously going to stay on the field when they go 3 wide. So,
and maybe that doesn't last. Maybe DK Metcalf is really good and does take the job, or David Moore disappoints, but what I'm saying is you've got a guy who has a chance to lead the team in targets with an all-pro quarterback.
Yeah, that's basically what you're looking for. You're looking for someone that's tied to, that elite quarterback that produces fantasy superstars. And with Doug Baldwin gone, it's just so many people are going to say that, they don't throw the ball enough. And I would agree that they don't throw the ball enough with Russell Wilson. But knowing that the OC is in place for the second year, typically you see more pass attempts. When the coaching staff stays in place, you're going to see more pass attempts the following season. The question is how many. How far back does this defense fall? Towards the end of the last year, they didn't look very good. So David Moore has, top 36 wide receiver upside. I don't think that I would say he has top 20 upside, but top 36, I could see that.
Yeah, so I just want to say this stat. The Seahawks were obviously last in pass attempts last year. And if you go back over the last decade, on average, the team who was last in pass attempts increased by 5 pass attempts per game. The following year, I think the Seahawks are likely to do that. I can't imagine they're going to run as much as they did. And if they do, and Baldwin's targets are vacated, Brandon Marshall, I talked about at the beginning of the season last year, was leading the team in targets. He's gone. I think that David Moore could be that guy, and he gets maybe 100, 110 targets. That could be awesome. He's a talented player.
If he sees 100 plus targets, he's a steal, like absolute steal. That means he's going to be a fantasy starter because Russell Wilson, like going over the years, if you look at completion percentage to wide receivers, Russell Wilson is like always near the top. So it's like, those 100 targets mean more than most players.
All right, Tags, I'm going with a 2 quarterback special here. And frankly, you could use this guy in a 1 quarterback league, but I'd say as a streamer. A lot of you guys do play in 2 quarterback leagues, though, and this is somebody that you can get after the last 10 rounds, maybe even in a 2 quarterback league. It's Lamar Jackson. So we keep talking about Jackson's floor, right? Tags, what about his ceiling? He rushed for 556 yards in 7 starts, people. He completed a higher percentage of his passes than Sam Darnold. He had more yards per attempt, too. Heck, he had as many yards per attempt as Andrew Luck. If the Ravens throw 27 times per game, which was the least in football last year, Jackson would have had an extra 20 pass attempts because he only threw 22 per game last year. That calculates to an expected 1.7 fantasy points per game, and it might sound like it's not that much, but that would move him up to 19.1 per game, which is more than Russell Wilson scored, and just behind Aaron Rodgers. Tags.
Can I combat that, though? Because if he's throwing the ball 5 more times per game, that's taking away rushing attempts from him.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, so it probably takes away 1 or 2 rushing attempts.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, if you look at the rushing attempts, I think that it was almost split in half between him and the running back. So you're looking at 2.5 less carries, which obviously brings it down. I would much rather have him run the ball. The issue with Lamar Jackson, to me, is that he doesn't have the passing upside. Like, I want to say that there wasn't a game last year where he finished better than like QB 8 or QB 10, but he was always in that range of like QB 12 to QB 14. So he's a safe quarterback, and I think you're fine if you want to play with him in 1 quarterback leagues. Just don't expect him to finish as a top 3 fantasy quarterback just because the passing chops just aren't there.
So Michael Vick was the number 1 fantasy quarterback back in, I don't remember what year it was. He had 900 or 1,000 rushing yards. Lamar Jackson could feasibly get to 1,200 this year.
That would be expecting a lot. I would set the over.
I mean, that's the pace he was on last year in 7 games.
I wonder what the over-under is in Vegas on that, like on Lamar Jackson. I would probably set it somewhere around 800, which is still high.
Actually, prorated, it was 1,271, so quite a bit higher than 1,200. I would bet on over 1,000 rushing yards for Lamar Jackson this year.
I might want to take you up on that bet.
All right, and I'll say the same thing. If Kyler Murray plays 16 games, I think he beats Lamar Jackson. I think he's the best rushing quarterback the NFL's ever seen.
I think Lamar Jackson is the better, more mobile quarterback. I think that he's the one that could put up Vick-style like video game numbers, whereas Kyler Murray,
wow,
he's a better passer than...
He's a better passer and he's a better runner, man. He is so good. I can't wait to watch him play. Regardless of what he does in fantasy, I just want to see him playing Cliff Kingsbury's offense.
It's going to be something, man. I can't wait to see who's right and wrong on him.
All right, what do you have at number 8, man?
Number 8. I mean, we had an award show at the end of last season, and I said the Never Again award, and I have to take it back. Because Devante Parker... Here's what I'm going to say about it, because I've talked about Devante Parker a lot on the show recently. I was like, how can I describe this in a way that people will understand it? Okay, Bobby, do you think Adam Gase is a good coach?
I mean, there's going to be a lot of excited Jets fans who are mad at me, but no, I think he's the worst coach in football.
Yeah, he's bottom 3, absolutely. I had him second worst, right behind Doug Marrone. But do you think that Ryan Tannehill is a good quarterback?
Depends on what you mean by good quarterback. Good enough to start in the NFL. I think he's a top 32 NFL quarterback.
Do you want him running your franchise?
No. I want Ryan Fitzpatrick in there, baby.
So why the hell are we basing our opinions on Adam Gase and Ryan Tannehill run offense about Devante Parker? Like, we all know that Adam Gase has held grudges against players. We all know that. We all know Kenyon Drake.
And Devante Parker had some injuries. Like, do you remember when, Tags, I don't know how close you follow the NBA. Kawhi Leonard sat out for the San Antonio Spurs because he had a calf injury, the same one that got Kevin Durant the torn Achilles. And Spurs fans were so mad at him. The coach was mad at him. They were like, why aren't you playing? They traded him to Toronto, and the rest is history. Devante Parker didn't play through some knick-knack injuries. We don't know what was going on there. He was hurt. When he's been on the field, he's been good. He has been. I'm sorry.
Last year, that's what people remember, and I understand that. I know there's a recency bias to all this, but the Dolphins, re-signing him as soon as they got rid of Gase, it kind of says a lot. And we knew that Gase was holding a grudge against him, because even when he came back into the lineup, and there was that, I think it was a Monday night game against the Texans, where nobody wanted to play Devante Parker, but he went off for like over 100 yards and he was targeted. If Ryan Fitzpatrick's the starter, Devante Parker should be drafted as a top 40 wide receiver. I don't know if Fitzpatrick is going to start or not, but Devante Parker is one of those guys that I believe has top 20 upside.
Ooh, man, that is a hot take, and I love it. Devante Parker right now is ADP is wide receiver 69. I've got him wide receiver 49, man.
There you go. I mean, see,
I've got him ahead of David Moore.
Yeah, I have him ahead of David Moore too. I have Devante Parker. I have him at 52, so I'm not even as high as you right now. I'm waiting to see. I happen to think it's going to be Rosen under center, which is going to drag him down a little bit, but targets could be there.
I don't know, man. It better not be Rosen. Here's my number 8. You ready for this? It's Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Nice.
This is a 2-quarterback special as well. But frankly, if he starts, you could make a case for him being a top 12 fantasy quarterback. Listen to this. I said last show, Ryan Fitzpatrick played 28 quarters. I was wrong. He played 26 quarters last year. Let's prorate that out to a full 64. That's a 16-game season, which would make 5,824 passing yards, or 728 more than Patrick Mahomes. 42 passing touchdowns, 347 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 379 fantasy points tags. That's way more than the number 3 fantasy quarterback. He would have been the number 2 fantasy quarterback. And I get it, different offense, different supporting cast. He might not start, but what if he does start? The Dolphins are playing down. Fitzmagic is slinging passes all over the yard. So does he drop 15% of his protection? Heck, let's say 25%. He's still the QB 10 if he drops 25%. I'll buy this lottery ticket and hope for a 40-year-old gunslinging Brett Favre with the Vikings to show up and do his thing.
I am not with you on this one. I can't even.
I know you're not. I know.
Even in a 2-quarterback format, you want a quarterback that's locked in to start, and he's not.
He's my QB3. And you know what? If he breaks out, I am winning my league.
Yeah, like if you're in a Scott Fishbowl and you want to take him as your QB3, I'm okay with that. Like to sit on your bench, and if he gets some starts, like he might put up some numbers, and he's shown the ability to like support fantasy wide receivers. That's why I want him as the starter instead of Josh Rosen. But the Dolphins as a franchise, if I was running the Dolphins, I would be starting Josh Rosen. Just because I have to find out what he's made of.
Also tags, over under. If Fitzpatrick starts 16 games, he throws 22.5 interceptions.
If he started all 16 games, I'll say under. It's rare to see quarterbacks throw that many interceptions anymore.
Like he did last season when he threw 12 in what was it, 26 quarters?
Yeah, that's not great.
All right, Tags, before we move on to number 7, I want to talk a little bit about Pristine Auction. Did you guys know it's free to register, free to bid? I get this question all the time. You don't have to pay. You only pay when you win. And guys, when you register, you can get $5 off if you just enter FantasyPros, all one word, as the registration code. It also tells Pristine Auction that our listeners are actually going to Pristine Auction. That way we can keep doing these giveaways, like the one we have going out right now. We're giving away a signed Travis Kelce Chiefs helmet if you go to fantasypros.com/contest. And most people think they can't afford this type of stuff. I'd encourage you, just go to the website, pristineauction.com, Pristine. Take a look for yourself. You're going to find some great values there. Everything's guaranteed authentic from only the most trusted sources. And Tags, I'm keeping my eye out right now for a signed Darnell Savage Packers helmet. If you find one, you let me know, man, because I want that bad boy.
Get out of here. Don't buy a Packers helmet.
Don't you have a Packers helmet?
No, I don't yet, because I'm waiting to find a good price on Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre.
Get a Darnell Savage one, man. You won't regret it.
But no, I'm not doing that. But I did order an item that actually yesterday. I got an Allen Robinson signed jersey. I needed a new Bears jersey.
Nice.
I needed a new Bears jersey because my last one was a Jay Cutler jersey. I'm not going to wear that anymore. So Allen Robinson, a signed Allen Robinson with sewn on letters and everything, $43.
Awesome, dude. That's really nice.
Yeah, so now I could wear it if I want to, or I could just display it in my basement.
Tags, before we get back into our sleepers, I had said that we were going to talk about this news story that the NFL might want to add some rule, and I totally forgot about it because I was excited to talk sleepers. So let's jump into it right now. What are you hearing?
So apparently the NFL has proposed to the NFL Players Association that they move to an 18-game season, but that players have a 16-game limit. So therefore, every player would have to sit for 2 weeks during the season. Now, there's no dates that you have to set, and it would create this weird dynamic in fantasy football where it's like, okay, now you could probably do fantasy playoffs all the way through week 18, because like now you're going to have different bye weeks essentially for your players in between, and those games at the end of the season might mean a lot more to teams because they've rested their players or they haven't, whatever the case may be.
So what do you think the chances are this happens? 10, 20%?
I don't even know. I think eventually it's going to be 2 preseason games and an 18-game schedule. They're going to be working on the CBA this offseason. I know that. I'm not opposed to it. And I think the Players Association should be all about it in terms of like it gives their players a couple bye weeks. It's basically you get 3 bye weeks in a season for players. So I think it's a good thing for the players.
Sure. Lots of strategy in fantasy football too. I think it would be fun. I think this doesn't happen. This is what I think it is. Have you heard of social judgment theory, Tags? It's this idea that when you want to convince the masses of something that's a really big move, you do it at inches at a time. So you move the anchor from one point to another. I think they're just trying to move the anchor here. I think they want 18 games, and they know every team's going to fight. I don't want my quarterback out for 2 games. Are you kidding me? And so they're going to say, well, we might as well just play 18 games if that's what you guys want, because now we've talked about it and it sounds okay. And here's how they should do it, okay? If you play 16 games at 60 minutes a game, that's 960 minutes for a season. You can drop that number to 2 minutes per quarter. That's 13-minute quarters. 18 games, that's fewer minutes than you play now. Or heck, you could drop it to 12-minute quarters. So you play shorter games, 20 games, that's 960 minutes. The players are playing the same amount of plays, same amount of minutes. You get 20 games. The NFL makes some serious money.
I don't want them to change the time of the quarters and the games. That would drive me nuts. It really would.
I don't want them to either, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go this direction. I think they want more football.
But here's the thing. If the NFL proposed it to the Players Association, this could happen. The reason I say that is because that means the NFL is already I agreed to it. So the coaches have no say. The coaches would have to deal with it essentially. But the Players Association, it's their job to protect players. And if they realize they're like, you know what, an 18-game schedule is probably going to come sooner or later. So this might be the best thing for our players because it's their job to protect them. So you're not extending their season. All you're doing is making life more difficult on the head coach is all.
All right, Tags, let's move on to your number 7 now.
Yeah, my number 7 is Dak Prescott. We've talked about Dak on this show before and the fact that he's finished as a top 10 quarterback every time he plays. Adding Amari Cooper, he looked even better down the stretch. I want to say that Dak Prescott was the number 5 quarterback since Amari Cooper joined the Cowboys. And yes, this is going to be a run-first team. That's going to happen, but Dak Prescott is still going to get some of those goal line carries because that's what he does every single year. He has Amari. He has Michael Gallup, who's now in his 2nd year. He was considered a guy that was going to take some development. Obviously he stepped up as the year went on a little bit, but having Amari Cooper and him on the outside and then Randall Cobb, a veteran, playing the slot, getting Travis Frederick back as his center. There's a lot of things to like about this Cowboys offense. Getting rid of Scott Linehan, I think that's only going to help matters. So I do like Dak Prescott. I feel like if you're in a 1 quarterback league, he's someone you could wait on and be just fine.
I think you're fine in a 1 quarterback league. I love their matchups in the first 3 weeks, so he's an excellent streamer to start your season. And I think in 2 quarterback leagues, he's a guy that you want to target. I would love to get Jameis Winston. I'd love to get Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. You give me 2 of those 3 guys, and I feel really good about myself. You don't have to spend big bucks. Now, I'd love Aaron Rodgers, but those are my 3 primary targets. I've talked about Dak Prescott a fair amount before, too, and it's funny to call him a sleeper. That's assuming he has a chance to finish in the top 10. Tag, since he entered the league, he has more fantasy points than Aaron Rodgers, dude.
That's crazy. That's crazy. A part of it has to do with missed games, though, right?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers has missed a handful of games, but even still, dude, he's right there with Cam Newton and Big Ben, too.
Yeah, Dak Prescott, he's so undervalued.
He really is. And I don't think he's like a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He can win with this defense. He can win with this offensive line. He's got Zeke. He's got Amari Cooper. Joe Flacco won. If he can win, Dak Prescott can win. He's not going to carry a team. But in fantasy, you can rely on him every single week.
I would tend to agree with that. He offers you a solid floor, too.
All right, number 7. You ready for this, dude? My next 3 are tight ends. Wait, number 5, by the way, I probably should have put it number 1 because it is so good. It's my favorite one, dude. I'm so pumped about that guy. But number 7, we'll start here. I want to talk about someone who's fallen off so many people's radars despite having more fantasy points per quarter than tight end 6, Trey Burton. He plays with the most tight end friendly quarterback in the league, led his team in snaps every time he played, and his ADP is tight end 23. Tags, do you know who I'm talking about?
Jack Doyle.
It's Jack Doyle. Forget the start of the season when Doyle was the clear starter. Everyone knew he was the starter. Did you know when he came back from injury in week 9, he out-targeted Eric Ebron by 50%? I've talked about the snaps. It was 70-30. He also out-targeted him by 50%. In those 4 weeks, Doyle was 6th in tight end receiving yards, 5th in touchdowns, despite missing the final 2 quarters with his kidney injury. I think Doyle has a lot of upside. He could start for the Colts over Ebron.
He probably will start for the Colts, to be honest with you. The question is he used a little bit more in the red zone than he was last year? But Jack Doyle being drafted outside the top 200 right now. So some people might be like, Jack Doyle, we know him. He's performed before. If you're outside the top 200, you're absolutely a sleeper. So yeah, Jack Doyle, if you're like one of those guys that you totally missed the boat on tight ends and you want to grab one that potentially can give you, top 6 upside, Jack Doyle.
Yeah, there's also a chance that he goes out in week 1 and has 2 receptions for 14 yards, but that's kind of the case with every tight end. So, I mean, I guess you can't go wrong going with someone's for upside. So what if you have to drop him and pick up, Austin Hooper or Delaney Walker? Someone like that's going to be out there, and it's no worse than, drafting that guy and starting him to begin with.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, who do you have at number 6?
Number 6, I have Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller, he flashed last year, in spurts, and to know that he did that coming off of a broken foot before the NFL Combine, most people don't realize that when a player suffers a broken foot, a lot of times it derails their entire season. I don't care if they're a veteran, but Anthony Miller was a rookie coming into that situation, learning a new offense, working with a brand new quarterback, obviously, moving to the NFL.
5 separated shoulders during the season.
Exactly, separated his shoulder. That's what they said 5 different times.
Did he get that cleaned up? Like, is that going to happen again?
He had surgery this offseason to help fix it, so he should be all good going forward. And obviously, he's recovering from surgery, but he's expected to be ready for training camp. So Anthony Miller plays for a high-scoring offense. He is the number 2 option on that team behind Allen Robinson, but fortunately, you're not paying the price to get someone like that in your team, because right now he's going right around the 160th player off the board. That's basically at the end of drafts. You're getting him for free, and he legitimately, I believe he has top 36 upside. And if something were to happen to Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller has shown even at Memphis that he was like a red zone magnet. And, we saw it the first year with the Bears. So I think Anthony Miller is a potential breakout candidate.
Tags, he would have been at the back end of my top 10 if I didn't know you were going to talk about him, but I agree on Anthony Miller, and this is what I love to see. So you can go to our ECR. If you just go to the Fantasy Pros homepage, hover over NFL, and you can click rankings there. It's our expert consensus rankings. So the expert consensus in the industry, what they think. ECR 49. Average draft position, which is ADP, 55. The experts like him 12 spots higher than the general public. That's the highest of anybody in the top 50 wide receivers ECR. He's a favorite in the industry, man.
There you go.
All right, so I said I've got a couple tight ends. Here's my next one. Tags, we've talked about this guy before. We always say, what happens if this running back gets injured? If Spencer Ware gets injured, Kareem Hunt's going to go off. If Le'Veon Bell holds out, James Conner's going to be a beast. What about this? What if Zach Ertz gets hurt? Dallas Goddard's a top 5 fantasy tight end if that happens. And let's not forget, Ertz has had multiple concussions, a groin tear, a strained hammy, a knee injury in college. If you're using your final bench spots and upside, guys, I know you would like to go running backs and wide receivers like always. That's what I've always done too. We haven't had someone like Dallas Goddard. It's hard to find 5 guys with more upside to put at the end of your bench than Dallas Goddard.
Yeah, Dallas Goddard is, friend of the show, Sigmund Bloom. We're going to have on soon. He's been talking about Dallas Goddard as someone that he's willing to draft as a top 12 tight end. Like, you don't need to draft him, obviously, there, but he's saying that he believes that this duo is talented enough to have 2 top 12 scorers. Now, I'm not in that. I think that it would take an Ertz injury in order for him to get into that territory. Not that top 12 is really that hard anymore, just because, like we look at some tight ends that made it in last year in terms of like Trey Burton and Kyle Rudolph, who were not very good all year, but they made it into the top 10, I think it was even. So it's not to say that, but you're right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. If you're looking for upside in your bench, Dallas Goddard is not the worst. I just did a mock draft. It was a 16-round mock draft with analysts where we have 10 starters, 6 bench spots. I drafted Zach Ertz at the 3-4 turn, so I got him late. I almost never end up with Zach Ertz. With my final pick, I took Dallas Goddard.
I love it, man. A lot of people are taking like Jalen Samuels here, and I get it. There's a chance that Jalen Samuels could have a great season if he, replaces James Conner. Running backs do get hurt. Jalen Samuels' ADP right now is 114. We don't even know if he's the backup. It might be Benny Snell. We know Dallas Goddard would immediately be a top 5 fantasy tight end in every expert's rankings.
Yep. That would happen.
All right, here's my number 5. Are you ready for this, dude? This is going to change your world. I should have told you this before you started doing best ball drafts, because I have 100% exposure to this guy in the very last round as my tight end 3. No one else is thinking about drafting him. Super deep. You remember when Gary Barnidge broke out in 2015, number 2 fantasy tight end out of nowhere? Martellus Bennett, Julius Thomas, Cameron Brate. This stuff happens just about every single season at tight end because it's a stupid, volatile position. I think I've got the tight end nailed this year that's going to do it. He's the number 39 tight end off the board, Tags. I'm not saying you need to draft him. You probably don't. You don't need to, even in a deeper league. In dynasty leagues, go ahead and grab him now because you're not going to be able to later. He should be on your waiver wire speed dial, though. It's Geoff Swaim of the Jags. And just listen to this, okay? In 12 games started with the Eagles in 2 years, including the playoffs, Nick Foles targeted Zach Ertz 109 times. That's 9.1 per game, or the same as, Michael Thomas last year, ahead of Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. In Kansas City, Nick Foles targeted Travis Kelce 8.5 times per start. Heck, in St. Louis, Nick Foles targeted blocking tight end Lance Kendrick 68 times in 11 starts. That's a 99 target full season pace, which would have been 5th most among tight ends last year. Swaim is not only the starting tight end in Jacksonville, but they have no number 1 receiver. Heck, they don't even have a number 2 receiver. Swaim was the most athletic tight end in the 2015 draft class. Last year, he got 26 out of 32 targets for 7.6 yards per target, which is more than Zach Ertz. We could be looking at an athletic tight end getting 100 targets this year, and he's the tight end 39.
He might be onto something here. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of him as like a breakout candidate, but the thing is like, that article I did on team scoring and what does it mean? If there's one position that doesn't rely so much on team scoring, it's the tight end position. And you're basically looking for targets, and knowing that Geoff Swaim is, among a group of receivers that aren't necessarily the guys that would demand a whole lot of targets. And, Nick Foles having the familiarity with John DeFilippo as the offensive coordinator there. There's some things that I could actually see this making sense.
I'm not ranking him in my top 12 or anything like that. I'm just saying in best ball leagues, I want him, and you keep an eye on him for your waiver wire speed dial.
I definitely will keep a closer eye on him. I'll be looking at everybody, but yeah, that's
Go back and read Geoff Swaim's interview about why he signed with the Jags, and this is what he says basically. Well, Nick Foles loves tight ends, and I want the ball, so it was pretty obvious. I've got no competition at tight end, so I'm going to go there and I'm going to get the ball. Let's do this.
Nice. He looked solid when he was healthy last year. He just didn't get a whole lot of targets with Dallas.
Yeah. Yep. All right. On to number 4 then, Tags.
Well, actually, at number 5, you went 2 in a row. You went Goddard and him. That's fine.
Did I? Okay, I was too excited about Geoff Swaim, which is not something I thought I'd say.
It's all good. I'll give my number 5 and number 4 here so we can keep moving. So number 5 is Damien Harris of the Patriots. I've said that Sony Michel, while I think Sony Michel is starting to fall a little bit too far in drafts, I'd be willing to draft him, but I'd be willing to draft both of these guys actually at their current costs, because Damien Harris is going as the 143rd overall player. We're talking about it's like the 13th round, essentially, where you would get him. 13th, 14th round sometimes. In analyst drafts, he's going sooner and sooner. People are picking up on this. Whereas Sony Michel is starting to fall around that RB20 range. So if you pay RB20 for Sony Michel and then grab Damien Harris, that is one of the guys I'm willing to pay for his handcuff. Like, I don't believe in handcuffing running backs that you have to do it or anything. But this is a situation where I believe one of those guys is going to be a top 15 running back each and every single week. It's just, which one's going to be the starter? I think it's Sony. I think they have Damien Harris as a somewhat of expensive insurance, but I love Damien Harris in the later rounds. It's hard to find a guy that literally would walk into a spot where he'd be a top 15 running back, and he would be one of them.
Yep, I think so as well. You remember 2016, obviously, Tags, when LeGarrette Blount rushed for 18 touchdowns. He was a top 7 fantasy running back. That's what this offense does. If Damien Harris was the starting running back for the Patriots, we'd all be drafting him top 15. And he'd probably surprise us all and finish in the top 10. That's just what they produce. So we'll see what happens with Harris. He's a great backup running back. I believe in Sony Michel's talent. It's just whether or not his knee holds up.
Yep, that's basically where I'm at with it. And so Damien Harris is probably going to have a touchdown here or there, but I'm not going to rely on him unless something happens to Sony.
All right, Tag. So you're at number 4 now. I've got 2 guys that I think you might take. In fact, my number 3 I think is probably on your list, because we both like him quite a bit.
All right. So number 4 for me, is Jameis Winston.
Okay. I mean, I've got him as QB6, so I agree.
Yeah, Jameis Winston, we've talked about him ad nauseum on the show, and the fact that, you don't have to be a dominant real quarterback in order to post fantasy numbers, but Jameis Winston has shown the ability at times to look really good. He's made a lot of boneheaded decisions, which has gotten him pulled out of games, which has gotten him benched, but Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't there anymore. There's not a competent backup that's going to steal that job from him. This is the year, basically, the Bucs are going to decide, do we extend him to a big contract, or do we move on and we have to draft a new quarterback? So they're going to find out what they have in him. The reason that you want to draft him is because he has maybe the most talented pass catching core in the league. When it comes to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate, there's a whole lot to like here. So, we've talked about it, so much with him. So I don't think we need to dig too deep on this, but I don't have him at QB6, but I do have him in my top 10.
So one more thing, his ECR ADP difference is +5. The closest thing to that is, let's see here, +4, Kirk Cousins, QB 23 to QB 19. Jameis Winston, the public has him at 16. ECR has him at 11, ahead of Jared Goff, Big Ben, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Phillip Rivers. He's a great pick. I want him in so many leagues, man.
That's how I feel about him. And I mean, I'm okay with him. There's other options that you can go with. Obviously, I talked about Dak Prescott already, but this is a year where you can definitely wait at quarterback and be okay.
All right, Tags, here's my number 3. This is the one that I think you probably have on your list. You know, Lamar Jackson threw 22 passes per game last year. How many do you think the Ravens throw this year? Maybe 25?
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Baltimore also ran a league-high 70 plays per game last year. Let's say they run just the league average of 63. They drop 7 plays, and they pass more. Jackson passes the ball 25 times. Heck, let's move him to 28. That's 35 carries per game for the Ravens, and we're being conservative here. Jackson is going to rush for, what, a dozen? That would put him 70 carries beyond Michael Vick's most in a single season. Mark Ingram's capped at 14 or 15. That's what he's always been throughout his career. That leaves 7 to 9 carries for Reggie Bush 2.0, as you've coined him, Tags. It's Justice Hill.
He almost made my top 10 list. Like, I debated putting him on there, but I just couldn't put him over some of the other names. But Justice Hill, phenomenal pick. And if, Mark Ingram, all we've ever seen of Mark Ingram is playing in the Saints offense. It could be like a situation where it's like he played in a dominant offense. He's just like another Carlos Hyde type running back, but he happened to be in a really, really, really good offense. And maybe he's just not as good as people think.
I mean, he's 30 years old. We're talking about how much Latavius Murray's value is propped up by going there. Why is Mark Ingram's value not propped up when he was there and now it's going to go down? He's 30 years old. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Hill steals this job from him.
It's possible as the year goes on, if they see him dominating the passing game, like if Lamar Jackson uses his running backs a little bit more in the passing game, we need to see that. Obviously, it's a new offense they're installing there, so we don't really know what to expect, but we do know one thing is that Justice Hill, despite being, somewhat smaller of a running back, I think he's right around 200 pounds. He does have that Reggie Bush skill set. He's not as durable, I don't think, as Bush is, but at the same time, he did carry a big workload in college, so he's shown the ability to handle it if they want him to do it. So obviously they believed in him.
We saw Phillip Lindsey last year, right? Phillip Lindsey touched the ball a lot, and he was good. I think Justice Hill, you say Reggie Bush, I think he's a bigger, faster, stronger, better Phillip Lindsey. And let's keep in mind, too, Justice Hill might lead this team in targets. It's either him or who? Willie Snead? Jordan Lasley? So 125 carries, 90 targets, lightning in a bottle. This is Tariq Cohen. He was a top 15 fantasy running back last year. I don't know, man. I love his floor and I love his ceiling.
I like the upside. I'm willing to take him in best ball for sure. I like him in dynasty formats because that team is, they're obviously building for the run game around Lamar Jackson. And if something happened to Lamar Jackson, they're going to be using the running backs in the passing game a lot more, and they're going to be passing a lot more. So I think that all goes into Justice Hill. And ideally, when you're drafting a backup running back, you're looking for someone with a 3-down skill set. And we know that Justice Hill has that. We know that Gus Edwards does not. We know that Kenneth Dixon, not really the most talented pass catcher. And they obviously like Justice Hill enough to draft him this year. So I dig it.
All right, who's your number 3?
My number 3 is none other than Mitch Trubisky. He's another one that we've talked about in the show because we did our quarterback primer not too long ago. We talked about the quarterback position, but it kind of goes back to the Jameis Winston conversation where it's like you look at the weapons that he has available to him. You look at his play caller and Matt Nagy. It's the second year in the offense. Most people don't realize that every single player that he was throwing to in the wide receiver and tight end core last year was different. Taylor Gabriel, Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, none of them were on the team when he was a rookie in 2017. So learning a new offense, learning the new players, like the nuances of an offense, like the second year in it, it's going to help him develop. Like the wide receivers are going to be better. Allen Robinson's not coming off the torn ACL this time. Anthony Miller isn't going to be playing through a dislocated shoulder. They added David Montgomery to help provide another outlet in the passing game that's going to be better than Jordan Howard. Tariq Cohen is back. Obviously, that's going to help matters. His offensive line is solid. There's so many reasons to like him, and dissecting what pass catcher is going to go off each week, which running back. Take Trubisky. I mean, I don't think it's out of the question that he throws for 4,000 yards and let's say 25 touchdowns, and then he rushes for 500 yards and rushes in 3 touchdowns. You're looking at a top 8 fantasy quarterback, and that's not even factoring in upside of passing, because I happen to think he can be a much better passer than people think. Bobby mentioned at the top of the show when it came to the whole Brady numbers about his completion percentages and yards per attempt. Matt Nagy's offense is very good. Andy Reid was not kidding when he said that Matt Nagy was his best assistant that he's ever had, the most pro-ready assistant that he's ever had, and Matt Nagy showed it winning Coach of the Year in his first year with the Bears. So I have faith in Nagy, I have faith in Trubisky to grow as a player, and I have faith in the players around him. That's why Trubisky, as the QB 19 off the board, that is madness. Madness.
I hate everything about Chicago sports, but as a fantasy sports analyst, I can't stop hyping up this Bears offense, man. I love Allen Robinson. I love Anthony Miller. I like Trey Burton. I love Tariq Cohen. Mitch Trubisky is a great runner, and he's going to get the passing yards. He's got a lot of upside. He has the best 3-game fantasy stretch in fantasy football history last year. I think he could be a top 5 quarterback, man. I'm not going to say it's like the same type of upside that we all knew Patrick Mahomes had, but if I'm looking at guys outside the top 12 who could bust out and maybe be a top 3, top 5 guy, I think Trubisky maybe tops that list ahead of Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And I actually have a bet with Mike from the Footballers with Trubisky and Kyler Murray. Him and I went head-to-head on an edible arrangement that we'd have to send whoever loses that bet. So I took Trubisky, he took Kyler Murray.
I like it, man. I think you're going to lose, but I like it.
It's fair. It's a pretty close bet, to be honest with you. I have them right next to each other in the rankings.
All right, here's my number 2. I haven't talked a ton about this guy. And, I've talked extensively about David Moore and Josh Gordon. I'm not going to do that again until next month when all the casual fantasy football coaches start to tune in. That way I don't just bore you with saying the same guys over and over. Obviously, they'd be number 1 and number 2 on my list. If you want to find out why about Josh Gordon, go back to last show. If you want to find out why about Moore, go back to any show or just tune into my Twitter. Instead, I want to turn your attention to someone that I believe has a huge ceiling this year. He's my favorite impact rookie in this year's class, at least for wide receivers. It's Parris Campbell. So I get it. Andrew Luck likes to spread the ball around, and the Colts did add Devin Funchess, but I'm betting on the Colts' second-round pick beating out Devin Funchess for the job, right? Campbell's an electric athlete with the ball in his hands with incredible combine measurements. If he starts, I think you can use Campbell most weeks. But now here's this, too. What if 30-year-old, 175-pound T.Y. Hilton gets hurt? He saw 8.6 targets per game last year. If you think Devin Funchess becomes the possession receiver for Andrew Luck, you're nuts. Campbell is the same mold of player as Hilton. He's bigger. He's faster. He could be a strong wide receiver too in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, if something happened to Hilton, I could buy into that. But right now, it's tough because you think about the tight ends and that they use Doyle, they use Ebron, they have T.Y. Hilton, they have Devin Funchess who they signed in free agency.
Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, they have Hines, and that's where it's like, okay, where is he at in the pecking order? And this is a Colts team that doesn't necessarily throw a whole lot, and that's why I think Andrew Luck, that we saw him not pile up massive fantasy games, because I think there was just one game all year that he had more than like 24 fantasy points. I can't remember the exact number right now, but he just basically lacked the ceiling that you would want, when drafting a quarterback that high. Not to say that those games can't happen in 2019. They can. The defense can take a step back. He has some more, pass attempts, but I just worry about Parris Campbell from a perspective that, like, where does he fall in the pecking order? How many targets can he actually get a game? Because last year the receiver core was like just ugly. It was nasty. So that's why we saw Chester Rogers get the targets he did.
Yeah, we have no idea what they're going to do now that Chester Rogers isn't their starter, right?
Chester Rogers, he's actually the starter right now. It's just, he was running ahead of Parris Campbell in their offseason workouts. We'll see once preseason starts and stuff like that, how fast Parris Campbell catches on. But Campbell is lightning in a bottle, man. Like, that guy, every time he touches the ball, you got to worry about him taking it, to the house. So he's a baller, that's for sure.
Yep. All right. Who is your number 2?
Number 2 is a guy that was on this list for me last year, and people continually undervalue him. He's moving up recently, so by the time you listen to this, he may have moved up even more. But it's Geronimo Allison. It is extremely rare to find a wide receiver going around the 10th or 11th round that offers you top 24 upside, and that's exactly what Geronimo Allison does. He, last year, he only played a quarter of the season before getting hurt, and then basically missing the entire 3 quarters of the season. But in those first 4 games, he was a top 26 fantasy wide receiver. Granted, some was based on touchdowns, but it was a very vanilla offense. It was very boring. Aaron Rodgers had arguably the worst year of his career, and Allison was still the number 26 receiver. We saw Devontae Adams, do what he did. So with Matt LaFleur coming there, we don't know what this offense will look like. Things can change, obviously, but I know one thing, and that's that Aaron Rodgers works on trust, and he trusts Geronimo Allison with everything. He always talks good about him any chance he gets to, so I will take the number 2 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers.
Geronimo Allison might be the wide receiver I most want on my team according to his ADP. even over David Moore, because David Moore is kind of, it's a lottery ticket. What if he starts? He'd be great. Geronimo Allison's starting, and Geronimo Allison is great, and Geronimo Allison has the best quarterback in the game. I'm sorry to Patrick Mahomes guys and Tom Brady people. I think Aaron Rodgers is still the best in the game. He played with a broken leg last year, people. He played with a strained knee, and he still only threw 2 interceptions. He had a low touchdown rate. That's the only difference. He's always been a top 2 fantasy quarterback every time he's healthy, and now he's healthy. We'll see if it maintains, but every single year his wide receiver 2 is a stud. Geronimo Allison is that number 2. You talked about the touchdowns tags. You prorate his first 4 games out to a full season, 1,156 yards, 76 receptions. Man.
That's actually bigger than I thought it would have been.
He is quite good. You know what? I'm going to let you go first with number 1. Because I'm going to save mine till the end.
Well, that's fair. That's fair, man. The guy that I'm about to take right here is it is extremely, like, the reason he's number 1 is because it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that you can get a player that can finish as a top 15 fantasy running back outside the top 100 picks. Like, that's just...
Hold on. I want to try to guess who this is.
It blows my mind. You know who it is already. And this is a guy that's going to start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say Latavius Murray, man.
No, I like Latavius Murray.
I don't know. Is Murray going outside the top 100?
No, he's not. He's actually going before Ronald Jones. There's quite a few backups that are actually being drafted ahead of Ronald Jones right now. And I understand why people are worried. I really do. But, just like take a journey with me back to, when Andre Ellington started for Bruce Arians. Everybody was like, this guy's too small. He can't hold up. He's a fine player, but whatever. And then all of a sudden he's putting up RB1, RB2 numbers seemingly every single week until he gets hurt. The next year it was like, there were concerns about him the next year. Could he hold up? And basically he was being drafted right around that RB15 to RB20 range. And then he did get hurt, and then his career kind of fell apart, and nobody else.
And then it was old Chris Johnson, and he was still good there too.
Yeah, Chris Johnson, Adrian Peterson, when he walked in, like the first game that he played there, he scored 2 touchdowns. So it's like,
David Johnson, 20 touchdowns, man.
Yeah, Bruce Arians, they're not going to be throwing the ball 650 times like Dirk Cutter and Todd Monken did last year. They want to get back to the run game a little bit. Now, that's going to be difficult because their defense is that bad, but this is a team that's going to run much better under Bruce Arians. And knowing that they didn't take a running back in the draft, knowing that they probably could get Duke Johnson for next to nothing right now. They haven't done that. And if they get Duke Johnson, this changes everything. But right now, they are content. All off season, we've heard Jameis Winston, we've heard Bruce Arians talk about how good Ronald Jones has looked. Like, he posted a picture, like, he looks in great shape. I was never worried about his conditioning. That wasn't like my concern about him. We know Peyton Barber is a plotter. We know that he's not going to be the running back of the future for your team. So let's find out what we have in the early 2nd round pick that we took last year. Let's find out. And I'm more than willing to reach a round or 2 for Ronald Jones to find out if that something is more. And I think it can be in Bruce Arians' offense.
I like Ronald Jones' upside because of the situation. Tags, this is really funny. My number 1 is Bruce Anderson, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, I mean,
for the same reason.
Same reason, okay? A little bit different, though, okay? So listen to this. His ADP right now, 302. And this is someone that might not even need an injury to be a starter, right? It's not like an Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, James Conner type of situation. It's maybe Alfred Morris. You remember him when he wasn't being drafted, and then everyone found out in the last week before the season started, wait a second, Alfred Morris is starting, and he runs for 1,600 yards as a rookie, or Phillip Lindsey last year, right? This stuff happens, especially when you get a new coach. And we know Bruce Arians, he runs a zone running scheme, and he said he doesn't want to start running back in Tampa. He has no ties to Ronald Jones draft capital. We all know that Arians had a chance to go get a running back, and the one he got, Bruce Anderson, who just happens to fit the Arians mold perfectly. He wants a bigger, one-cut back who can catch the ball. For instance, you talked about Andre Ellington. What about his first year? 5th-round rookie Vick Ballard was his guy. He went 9-3 under Arians with Vick Ballard at his running back. Jones has bad hands. When's the last time that Bruce Arians started a running back with bad hands? Jones might have the worst hands of any starting running back in football. Peyton Barber might be the worst running back in football. And then there's Anderson, who's a great pass catcher. He's a great special teams guy. He's big. He's a one-cut guy. He's the Bruce Arians mold of running backs. I think he's got a 20-30% chance of starting. And if he does in this offense, you get him for free. This is the steal of the century, man.
I refuse to say that Ronald Jones has bad hands. I don't know. We don't know that. We haven't seen enough to do that. He wasn't used in a big receiving role, Well, at USC, but that's because Sam Darnold didn't like check down. He wasn't a check down quarterback. So I'm unwilling to say that he's unable to do it. Peyton Barber's not an above average receiver. This is the reason though. Like that's why I'm not willing to say Ronald Jones is a top 20 running back in terms of my rankings, even though I'm pretty sure he's a starter.
Sure. If I knew he was a starter, I'd draft him there.
The thing is like, even if I know he's the starter, I can't move him into the top 20 range because I don't believe that he's an elite 3-down back. Like, I don't think that he's an elite pass catcher, but that's the reason I think OJ Howard to me is going to be a breakout star, is because the correlation between tight end targets and running back targets, those matter. So knowing that there's not a running back on the roster that like dominates those targets, I think OJ Howard can go off, but Ronald, like I said, to find a starting running back outside the top 100, y'all are sleeping on Ronald Jones.
I agree, man. I want Ronald Jones, and I wouldn't mind getting Bruce Anderson. At the very least, someone to just keep an eye on in the preseason and see if he shines, and if there's any indication that he might be an Alfred Morris or a Phillip Lindsey. That's all I'm saying. This was fun, man, especially the Geoff Swaim introduction to our fantasy world.
It was a blast. It's going to be
I love these sleeper episodes, man.
For sure. It was a good time, and that's the thing. I feel like as this offseason goes on, we're going to see a lot of the players that we talked about move up draft boards.
Yep. All right, guys, remember to check out our cheat sheet creator if you want. Premium members get all kinds of perks and benefits, and you can get it for free. You deposit $10 to Yahoo DFS that you can win money with. So it's basically a 6-month Hall of Fame subscription for free. You can check that out at fantasypros.com/offer. And also check out our Travis Kelce signed helmet giveaway at fantasypros.com/contest. And thanks to the sponsor of today's show, pristineauction.com, Pristine auction.com. For Mike Tech